so Barbie is out. All right, cool. No more Barbie. Bye-bye, Barbie. Yes. Criminals. That's a good one. Mornings. Oh, I hate mornings. I can't stand mornings, Jada. People chewing with their mouths open. Oh. And then when they try to talk to you when they're chewing and they got that going on, you're like, listen, you need to relax. Yes. Oh, we're not going to go there. Ooh, slurping on the straw at the bottom of the cup. How many of you slurp on the bottom of the straw? Like you get down in there and you're like, listen, I paid for this drink at Sheetz. I'm getting every last drop. Awesome. All right, what are some other things that you just hate? Clowns. All right. When people try to be sneaky, I know all about that. What else do we got? Skull. Okay, all right, skull. Annoying laughs. All right. Reckless drivers. And anyone else that I did not get? Colton. Oh, be nice. We love Colton. Mike. Working. All right. Well, hey, I want to share something with you tonight that I absolutely hate, but we're going to do it anyways. Sound good? All right. This is what I need everyone to do. I need you to put your phone away. I need you to sit up in your seat. I need you to put your hands in your lap. All right? Sit in your seat, put your hands in your lap. All right? And for the next minute, it's only a minute. No one is to talk. No one is to do anything. We're going to play the silent game for just one. Listen. One thing that I hate more than anything in the world is silence. I hate being quiet. When I'm in an atmosphere that is quiet, I go nuts. But this is what we're going to do. And it's only for a minute. Only for 1 minute. I want total silence, okay? Total silence. No one talking. And this is what we're going to do to make it a little bit more uncomfortable. We're all going to close our eyes. So everybody close your eyes right now. I'm not going to close my eyes, but you close your eyes. Everybody close their eyes. And it's just going to be for 1 minute. A timer is going to start here in a second. And we're just going to be quiet and silent for just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Let's see how we feel after we're done. Okay, go ahead and hit that timer. 1 minute. Silence. All right, here it goes. Now, didn't that feel like forever? Scared you, didn't I? Did that not feel like forever? All that was, listen, that was just one moment. Just one moment of silence. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but how I am, I hate silence. Is there anyone in here that's like me? Like, I always have to have music, or there always has to be something going. Like, even for me at night, I have a noise maker that makes noise at night, like water running or a fan going, because I hate the silence. I mean, I cannot stand it. Even when like I'm driving and you're in a car with someone and they're just being quiet, like, no, I'm turning on music. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to say something. Like, I cannot stand the silence, because you know why? Weird things happen in the silence. Think about that. Imagine being at home, like when you're at home and you hear something and then it's silent again. And then you hear something and then it's silent again. It's the silent moments that make us wonder, is there someone in my house? I want you to think about that. Have you not you're like, you think that somebody is there and you go, Mom, Dad, Mom, Dad. And then it gets like, Mom, Dad. And then I don't know about you, but then like it's so silent that it's like you're scared. So what you naturally do, because we are all so scared and because we're very brave individuals, the first thing we normally do is jump in our bed and pull the blanket over us. Because for some reason, if there is a monster in the house, it can't touch us because we have a blanket wrapped around us, and our blanket is going to keep us safe and sound. I don't know why it's like that. But even like when you're walking and it's like really, really quiet, if you're like in the woods, I don't know too many people that go walking in the woods by themselves unless they totally want eaten by something that lives in the woods, okay? But silence is not something that I like at all. And I don't know if you've ever dealt with this, but moments of silence make me very uncomfortable. And I don't know if you've ever been into a place or you've gone and hung out with a bunch of friends and that person said, oh, I'll be right back. And there's that little moment that seemed like forever, that was just a few seconds, but it seemed like nobody was there. You know what I'm talking about? Like in the moment of silence and the silent times, you felt totally alone. Because silence does something to us that makes us uncomfortable. It brings a feeling inside of us that just kind of makes us undone. It undoes us because we begin to think and our brain begins to you ever been by yourself in the silence and you begin to think you hear something that's not really there, but because you think that it's there, then you actually hear it, but it's not really there? Yes. You know what I'm talking about? You are like, no, you are crazy. But listen, I begin to really think about this concept of silence. And let me give you the definition. Silence is a lack of sound or noise, or listen to the second definition, guys. It is a situation or state in which someone does not talk about or answer questions about something. How many of you love to talk to people that don't answer your questions? I've never met anyone that's like, oh, yes, please don't answer my questions. No, like when I ask you something, what do you want? You want an answer, naturally. We want an answer for questions that we have. What are you doing? Where are you going? Now, some of us ask lots more questions than others of us, which is fine. But listen, silence is a state in which someone does not talk or answer questions about something. And I begin to really think about this concept, and I'm going to kind of go deep real quick tonight on this subject because I think it's something that we need to talk about. Have you ever experienced times in your life, I need everybody looking at me, have you ever experienced times in your life where it appeared as though God was not there? Have you ever had moments in your life where there was so much going on and you just wanted to know where God was? Because maybe something at home was happening that was so bad and you're saying, God, where are you? Or something was happening at school that was so bad because all those kids kept doing is making fun of you and making fun of you and making fun of you. And you're on the bus and you're just wondering, God, are you even there? And you begin to question where God is because all that there is silence. Do you know that you find this within the Bible? We're going to start a journey into the book of Exodus. And we're going to be here, it took us 2.5 years to get through Genesis, so I have no idea how long it's going to take us to get through Exodus. But we're going to start this journey of Exodus. But can I tell you this, that Exodus begins with God being silent. I want you to understand that the book of Exodus, it begins with God being silent. Some of you are looking at me like, what in the world are you talking about? Well, this is what I need you to understand about this. Exodus is one of those times when God was silent, but God was still there. See, we need to learn to see that even in the silent times, God is still there. And this is how we're going to start tonight, because I need you to understand the book of Exodus starts with the feeling, with the appearance that God is silent and is not around. Well, you say, well, what makes you say that? Let me read Exodus chapter 1, verses 6 through 7 for you. Because remember, we left off in the book of Genesis with Joseph's being head over Egypt. Everything was going well and going great for his people, the Israelites. But then Joseph and all of his brothers and all of that generation died. But the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful, meaning that Joseph's family, his generation of maybe his sons and their wives and their kids, they all died, but his family lineage kept growing and growing and growing. Now they multiplied greatly. They increased in numbers and became so numerous that the whole land was filled with them. Now remember, this is people that are in Egypt, that are not Egyptians, that are multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And now Israel, being in Egypt, not being Egyptians, is multiplying and multiplying, and soon they begin to grow so vastly that they're almost, if not, have more people than the Egyptians, where they are held captive. That would be a problem. If you're held captive somewhere and all of a sudden your family grows and you have more of you than those people that have you captive, there's going to be a problem. All right, so what is the problem that we're going to look at? Because as we read here, okay, verse 7 fills us in that there's nearly a 400-year gap covering the period of Joseph to this period of Exodus. Imagine for 400 years, there's a gap of not knowing what's happening. We don't read about it. It's nowhere in Scripture to be found. We really don't know what happened in those years. So my question to you is this. So when we don't hear from God, are the events that happen and the people involved, are they no concern of God? Does God not care anymore if God doesn't speak? Does God not care about you if He's not telling you what to do, if He's not invested in your life? Because, God is silent in these times. Does this mean He's not interested in me? Just because I can't hear from God and there's a time where I am in hardship and I'm in pain that I can't hear from God, does that mean that God doesn't care anymore? Well, let me explain to you why I'm asking these questions. Because what we find out happening is Israel grew so largely that in verse 8 through 11 it says, a new king came to power in Egypt. He never knew who Joseph was. He spoke to his people saying, listen, there are way too many Israelites for us to handle. We've got to do something. Let's advise a plan to contain them, lest war breaks out and our enemies will walk all over us and leave us. So what they did is they put those people into slavery. And they forced them to build. The Egyptians couldn't stand the Israelites and treated them worse than ever. So imagine, we've seen it in the movies and we've seen it depicted. Slavery was happening long before we even knew about it. Because what ended up happening here is the Egyptians took the Israelites and said, listen, you're going to build for us. Every day you're going to labor in the sun. Egyptians, a very hot climate. Not really nice to be outside all the time. Into the hundreds of degrees. And they said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to build our monuments. You're going to build our structures. You're going to, by yourself, make clay and make brick, and you're going to do all this work. And they were forced to be slaves. Imagine being forced, and your family being forced to do outside work for 400 plus years. Being a slave for 400 plus years. So, okay, let's just be honest. If we can be honest, this is pretty bad. All of your people, my people, all of our family, our friends, we're all captured by the Egyptians and we're forced to do slave labor in a place where we don't really want to be. And there's so many of us that are the people that have us got scared, and so they're forcing me to be a slave. That's pretty bad, right? Like that's pretty terrible. How can things get worse? Because for 400 plus years, my family has been a slave to you. God, where are you now? God, I don't hear you saying anything to me now. Where are you? In your situation that you're in right now, student, where's God? You've been struggling for 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even longer years with an issue, years with low self-esteem, years of insecurity, years of hating yourself, years of getting made fun of, years of abuse, and you sit there and say, God, where are you? How in the world could it get worse? Let me take you back to the story, because guess what? It gets a lot worse. Because it said God was so pleased with the midwives of Israel that they continued to have kids and became a very strong people. And because they honored God, God gave them families of their own. So meaning Israel keeps having kids and they keep having families. So now the Pharaoh issued to his general, every boy that is born from this point forward, you will drown in the river, but you will let the girls live. You will drown every baby boy. So now we're not only slaves for the last 400 years wondering where God is, but now all of a sudden, the Pharaoh says, listen, I'm going to drown every baby boy. Every boy that you have, I'm going to drown in the river. So imagine that night when the soldiers run into the house and they grab the baby boys from the mothers and they drown them in the Nile River. God, where are you now? God, why aren't you speaking to me now? Why are you silent now? God, where are you? Just when you couldn't think that enough was enough, now babies are dying. And they're trying to wipe out a generation because they're killing all of the males. All the baby boys, they're killing all of them. How in the world could this happen? What happens when things go from bad to worse for God's people? Why is God sometimes silent in our lives? Now understand this, Israel is called God's chosen people. But if you are in here tonight, everybody look at me, if you are in here tonight and you've accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and you call him Lord and Savior, and you are a Christian, you are part of God's chosen people. You are in the family of God. So what happens when you as a Christian, you someone that loves Jesus and is trying, because I know, guys, listen, we're trying to love Jesus the best we can. We're trying to live for Jesus the best we can. What do we do as Christians when things go from bad to worse for God's people? When it gets so hard for the Christians, where is God? Why isn't God doing anything for us? When I was studying this, I found that there are two other men in the Bible that walked through the same thing, wondering why God was silent. First one was Job. He was wondering, okay, God, I cry out to you to help me, but you don't answer me. I stand and you only look at me. Then King David said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. Students, have you ever felt like God wasn't there? Have you ever felt like God was silent in your life? Because what you were walking through at first was so bad, and then it just got even worse. So you question whether God was even there. Why is God silent? In reality, and in the reality of life, God isn't absent. He was not gone when Israel cried out for 400 years. He was not gone when Job was crying out, when David was. It's just how it felt to them. But why does it need to feel that way? Why the silence? Why can it seem like God is playing hard to get, like he's just standing there looking at us and he's just asking us to cry for help? Why is it that God is sitting there while we are crying out, why is he being silent? Well, naturally, like I do with a lot of you, I want to answer a question with a question tonight. And I want you to think about this. Why is water so much more refreshing to me when I'm thirsty than when I'm not? Why is water so much more refreshing to me when I'm thirsty? Why is food so much more enjoyable and so much better to me when I'm really hungry? Why is nice shade so much more cooling than when it's hot outside? Because I need you to understand this. Thirst, hunger, relief from that, all of those things. Why is it that they are the way that they are? Why is drinking water so much better when I'm thirsty? Because understand this, and I want everyone to get this. Thirst makes me drink. Thirst makes me find water. Hunger makes me eat and makes me go after food. Heat will make me search out the cool of the day. This is what I want you to get. Hurt, pain, longing, emptiness. See, longing makes us ask. Emptiness makes us seek. Silence makes us listen harder. Did you catch that? Silence makes us listen harder. So just like when we are thirsty, water tastes so much better. Just when things are silent is when we should listen so much more to God. We should listen so much more to God, because this is what I need you to get tonight. Like a lot of things with God, God's silence is how it feels, but it's not how it is. God's silence is how it feels, but it is not how it is. Just because it feels like God is silent doesn't mean that He is. Just because it feels like God isn't here, it doesn't mean that He isn't. That's what we need to understand. Is it just because I feel like God is not here? So you desire God, ask Him for more. What do you get? You get nothing. But that silence is how it feels, but it's not how it is. You are not alone. The Bible says that God is with you always. As He's speaking all the time. And He loves you all the time. So it's not that God was not there. It's not that He was not silent. It's that He was hearing the cries of His people. And He had a plan. How many of you are never on time? Just curious. Like even if someone told you a half an hour before you were really supposed to be there, you're still going to be late for that half an hour that they told you. How many of you? Okay, you're just always late. Let me ask you this. How many of you are always on time? You try to be. Your goal is to always be on time. Okay. Now see, check this out. My dad always told me this. My dad always said to me as I was growing up that, Micah, you never have to apologize for being early. You always have to apologize for being late. Some of you are looking at each other like, you are always late. I'm always waiting on you. You're always like, we're waiting on it. Because you know why? Because our time is our world. It's everything to us. And when something is in our time, we want it to go according to our clock, according to my time. I want things to go according to my schedule. Because to be honest, we're selfish. I want to do things when I want to do them. I want to do things in my timing. But do you know that God's timing is not yours? So it might seem that like God is silent, but guess what? He's just waiting on the right time. And it might feel like it feels, and it might feel like, God, there is no one here, but guess what? He is still there. So students, what do you do when you feel like God is silent? What do you do when you feel like there's a silence? How do you react to this? When things are so difficult and you're trying to cry out for God, what do you do? What's very simple is this. Don't ignore the silence. Don't ignore the silence. Learn from it. Learn from it. Trevor, if you want to come. Some of the biggest moves God has made in my life, some of the biggest things that God has done in my life personally, guys, has been right after a moment when I felt like God was never there. Some of the hardest things I have ever walked through in my entire life God showed up in a big way right following that. Stay very close to God and watch His power be displayed through all this. Learn from the silence. Get what you can from these times of quiet, because God lives in the promise of renewing all things to every generation. It says His mercy is new every morning. You know what our job as Christians to do is to trust in the faithfulness of God. That's what we're called to do, is trust in the faithfulness of God and be willing to listen to the whisper of God. See, the prophet of God went up into the mountain and he was looking for a sign from God. And as he was looking for the sign from God, he said, you know what, God, maybe you'll come in a great earthquake. Maybe you'll come in this great earthquake, because listen, God is coming to speak to man. So automatically the prophet of God thought, oh, cool, maybe God's going to show up in a great way. And so all of a sudden he thought the earthquake was going to be it. God wasn't in the earthquake. He thought, oh, maybe it's going to be the wind. As the wind, just a mighty wind shoots through, maybe that's like the voice of God. As the mighty wind came through, nothing. He said, well, maybe it's fire. Maybe it's a fire from God. Maybe, and fire's through there, and there's nothing. But then it says that the voice of God came through as a really small whisper. A whisper. That's how God came through, as a whisper unto man, and He spoke to man through the whisper. See, we need to understand that God is always speaking, but are we always listening? The silence of God doesn't mean the absence of God. I want you to understand this, guys. The silence of God doesn't mean the absence of God. Oftentimes in the silence, God is getting ready to do something. Oftentimes in the season where it's the season of silence, where things are difficult, God is getting ready to do something. The world is changing, and God is moving in wonderful and fresh ways. His Holy Spirit is moving. Students, I want you to look at me in the eyes, because I want you to know this. That in your season of silence that you're walking through right now, God is there. God is there. You might be walking through hardship right now, and you're like, listen, if I sat you down 101 and we just looked, and I said, just tell me how you really feel, what's really going on. Some of you could just share with me horrific situations that you're walking through. The hurt, the pain is very real. The emotion is real. Listen to me. The anger is real. The confusion is real. The bitterness is real. The feeling of betrayal is real. The hurts of what people said about you is real. The hurt that people have spoken against your family is real. It's real. The confusion of wondering if things are going to ever get better is real. But can I tell you what is also real? It's the healing power of Jesus. That's what's real. That's what's real. Because students, listen to me. The healing power of Jesus can take a girl that feels so insecure, and it can make her absolutely beautiful. A girl that struggled but found Jesus. It can take a young man that is so mad at the world and begin to break him because there's so much hurt, there's so much confusion, and then Jesus sweeps through, and it can change his life if he allows it to. That's what God does. Just because there is silence doesn't mean that there is absence. Can I tell you what I'm sick of? I'm sick of a broken and hurting generation. I'm sick of a hurt and broken generation. I'm ready for a generation to rise up in their healing, rise up in the silence and say, God, I know that you are there, and I'm going to make it because I know that you're there. Then all the confusion, the hurt, the pain, wondering what is real and what is not, wondering if people really love you or care about you, wondering through all of these, navigating through all these things, you come into your season of silence thinking, God, are you there? And he says, listen, I'm right here. With all heads bowed and eyes closed tonight, nobody looking around. Nobody looking around. The season of silence, the silent times. What do we do during the silent times? What do we do when we feel like God is not there? What do we do in our hurt, our pain, our confusion? And I don't care if you're 14 or 40, we all go through seasons of silence. And in the seasons of silence, we wonder, God, where are you? And he's saying, I am right here. The nation of Israel cried out. And we're going to learn how God brought them and sent them someone to lead them out of their horrible situation. God has said, you know what? I'm going to raise up someone that is going to lead these people out to freedom. They're going to exit out of this. And that's what Exodus means, to exit out. And they're going to exit out of this. But first, he has to deal with the season of silence.